All right. So we're going to slowly start. All set? Yeah. Okay. So hi everyone. I feel like I have a bit of an imposter syndrome because I don't really know how well versed I am in this topic. So let me just start filling the room about. So how many of you have trained AI models? All right, we have a couple. Okay, good. So how many of you have used I don't know, OpenAI API and do some things with that, like doing some coding? All right, about half of the room almost. And how many of you have used like the most commercial or you know, accessible use of AI, just using ChatGPT, the free version? Okay, almost all of them, all of you. Great. So I think that for for half of you, this might be something completely new. For the other half, I hope that I have something that is at least surprisingly, it's going to be a surprise for you, I guess, how certain things work. So I'm Iztok Smolic. I am the managing director of Agile Drop. I've been in Drupal since 2008. I run so we have a development company in Slovenia. We help digital agencies and in-house development teams by basically enabling them with additional development capacity. I was a developer back in 2008, but for a couple of years I haven't really touched code. Then this AI hype started, and I really wanted to start working on something. And so about a year now, I'm also doing some development again. So this is the presentation based on that. So we are going to look at some just basic introductions to large language models. We're going to take a look at OpenAI API. We're going to look at the modules that we have for Drupal already available to us. And then we're going to do just a simple custom implementation of a custom module that is using OpenAI API. So basically, this is how I think this works, right? So large language models, basically, they just complete the text that we insert as an input. So, and they complete the text based on the data and all of the patterns that they were trained on. So for example, if we give them an input, the sky is, well, I mean, most of us would probably complete that with blue. Sky is blue. And this is almost like the same way as this AI model works, is that it will try to basically come up with the most statistical probable continuous, so the most statistical probable next word that comes after the input. And even the ChatGPT, when you are chatting with it, it's basically that. It's just another interface on top of it that makes it look like it's a chat, that it's a question and answer, but it's just a completion of text. And this input, right? We call it prompt. Us prompt engineers, we are proud to have our own word, right? So, and it's this prompt engineering, and how do you address it is actually quite, I don't want to say science, but there is a trick to it, right? And you need to learn how to structure your inputs to get the best results possible. And what I saw is that basically, the more lazy you are with the inputs, the more lazy or the more generic and not very useful the response will be. Right? It's the same way as, you know, talking with a person. If I come to you with a straight up question without any context, I won't really get a good answer, right? And this context is actually where we can we can bring additional value out of those AI models. And so what I said earlier, so the sky is blue. This is based on the training that the model had, but sometimes you want the model to basically know a bit more, right? And to train a model, that's quite expensive, and it's not for like a mass use, right? So how you can actually train, but it's not actually training, the model is to inject a bit more information in the actual prompt. And this is basically what we call that we are adding more context to it. And the more context you can give, the better the answer. The problem is that how we measure the capacity of a model is based on how many words, let's say, basically they are tokens, which is not directly words, but how many words we can put in the prompt and how many words we can get out of the output. So the more the words we can use, the better context we can give and the longer output we can give. And the better the model is, basically more of this capacity it has. In practice, this is very simple, but one of the things is that the responses are slow, and based on what kind of API you're using, it's still quite expensive. I mean, at first you might think, okay, this is nothing, this is just cents or even less. But as you start using it and start deploying it to some real usage, it can really add up. I mean, you can easily spend 100 euros just by playing with it in your sandbox, which, I mean, it can easily grow a lot faster when you start deploying it to, for example, mass usage, right? And the thing is that even though it's just a statistically prediction of what is going to be following this input, so like completing the text, basically we realized, or us, right, the people using it and the people making it, they realized that it can actually also do some kind of reasoning. So it can decide on certain things that would feel like logic, that would feel like reasoning, and so on. So and this is actually something that surprised everyone, because large language models were basically made for more of a, let's say, usage with text, meaning you put in some text and you get back some classification or maybe summaries, right? It was not really meant to be this full-on AI capability, but somehow it became that. So basically, the whole point was that AI was never considered to be built on top of large language models, but they thought it was something else. But right now, this is the best implementation that we actually have. And because of this reasoning, because of this almost logical decision making, we can actually do a lot more than just write a cringe LinkedIn post or a summary of a blog post, right? So this is an example. So this is the playground, the sandbox of OpenAI. And this is what I was telling before. So this is the completeness of a sentence or a completion, right? And we're using the model Text Da Vinci. This was used prior to ChatGPT, prior to GPT models, and it was straight on, completion. So you put in Drupal is, and it completed the text with whatever it thought it should be completing with. And then, then people started using it for a chat purpose, right? And what is a chat? Chat is just you can consider it as a continuing. So chat could have a history, right? And basically, how you would continue a chat, or how you would make the AI answer your question, would be that you would basically write a script of previous chat, which is made up, and then you would just ask it to basically complete it. And this is how it started to be used as a chat. And then what happened is that OpenAI actually built just an interface on top of that. So whatever we see here before the green marked was just a text, and now we have basically different fields, right? Different input fields for the same kind of thing. in the back end, there is no many difference, and it's much easier as us as programmers who are using API. It's much easier to now get the latest answers and to inject previous conversation. One of the important part is that once you start using the API, obviously it doesn't have a history on its own. When you are getting the first response, you have to save that response and push it back as a history for the next response. So you don't have like an open thread with the API. You always have to start from zero. So you always have to basically store your conversation locally, or I mean, in your own server. So how we can actually use AI with Drupal? So first, right, it can help you write code. So for those who are using ChatGPT, you know that you can basically ask it to I don't know, do you write a function or do some kind of troubleshooting. Maybe you can put in an error and it can give you a possible solution from that. So because code is basically a text, it can generate code, it can complete the code, it can basically do all of those things. My experience is that the code that ChatGPT 3 or 4 outputted mostly worked. It was especially useful when writing regex, which I hate, and it's really good at that. And it was also very good with plain PHP, JavaScript, even Laravel, which is basically with Laravel is what I used it the most for. But with Drupal, I was really disappointed with also Copilot, for example, which is a product of GitHub, which uses OpenAI. I guess ChatGPT 4 was a bit better in terms of actually writing or responding with the right code for Drupal, but more or less I was not really confident anymore. I'm not confident anymore to accept what Copilot gives me back for Drupal. So for example, and one of the reasons why is that is because of its cutoff date. So GPT has a cutoff date in 2021. And so the last version that it has, that is aware of, is actually Drupal 9. Now, we know that there is not a lot of changes between Drupal 9 or Drupal 10, but still, right? Basically, whatever it outputs, it applies for Drupal 9. So any kind of new features, any kind of new functions, or it will even start using deprecated functions and so on. And one of the other things is that it just randomly mixed up the versions between. So I actually got out, even though I asked it specifically to write me a Drupal 9 or Drupal 10 code, it basically started mixing up Drupal 7 kind of structures and functions and so on with Drupal 9. So it was really not so much useful to ask it to generate really large chunks of functionality or code or modules and so on. It was much better when I asked it for some specific, for example, PHP stuff and so on. So I don't know what was your experience. Maybe we can talk about this later on, but that was my experience with coding. Then, of course, we already have Drupal modules that are implementing different AI functionality. One of the one that I just basically recently found out about was the Augmenter. And so far, I feel like it really is a bit more abstract than, for example, the OpenAI module, which is really straight to the point and doesn't really allow you for much of the for any other let's say modifications and extensions and so on. So I really like this Augmenter AI module that you can use. And so the point of Augmenter is that, yes, you are basically dealing with content, writing content, summarizing content, classifying content. So a lot of those things that we would consider in a CMS, an AI would actually do. There's also a Drupal AI initiative started. So far, I see more or less one person being active in that. But there is a thread here on this link, which basically has all of the modules listed there that are AI related. And if someone is interested, I would definitely point them there to start exploring and doing things. I don't think that any of those modules or solutions, whatever, is production ready. I think it's really for our own, let's say, pleasure to basically play around with. I would probably rather build something on my own and put it in production than go with this, because I would want to contain the functionality. So Augmentor, it basically supports multiple providers, which is a new thing. I mean, all of us probably are using OpenAI. This has a bit more of services available. It has a useful UI for creating prompt and contexts, so you don't have to put those things in code. It already has a CK editor integration, meaning that when you write, you can just click, write me a paragraph of this and this. And it can also use like node fields as the input or the prompt to generate something else on another field, which an example that I'm going to show you. And it can also integrate with ECA. This is Events, Conditions, Actions module. It's basically very similar to what I used to use in Drupal 7 called rules, which basically it means it's made for building processes with a user interface. I hope this will work. So this is now the Augmentor example. So here is the list of all of the models or basically agents, or I don't know how to call them. And here you can basically prepare the system message. In this example, I prepared a message, or I basically primed the model to know a lot of information about AirDrop, about the company. And then I basically prepared the template for the message, which will then output like a useful HTML content, or content basically already marked up with proper HTML. So when you're using this model, you have to add this field augmenter. Then when you have this field available, you can go to manage form display, and you have to set it up so it uses the right augmenter, it uses the right input, and it uses the right output. So we selected the source field as the title, and we selected the target field where the response is actually going to be saved as the body. Augmentor is what I described before. And basically that's it, right? So the whole point is that we would like to create the full blog or the full content of a page based on the page title. That's the mission, right? So now we add a new basic page content for the title. Let's say that we want to create a new page about Drupal 7 support, right? And then that Augmentor, basically this is the button that Augmentor puts in, and then we get basically the whole structured with HTML. And in terms of content, it's actually quite good, right? It's not bad. I mean, it's something that I would not be able to just to write, definitely not in a couple of seconds. So, and yeah, this basically goes. So you can start building like this. So you can now add a click to create summary of that and put it in your SEO purposes. You can start classifying. Basically, you can say, take me the body field and start creating tags, so we can tag this content and so on. So you can start building on top of that. Okay. And yeah, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So and I mentioned like OpenAI. So far, I think like there was a lot of like PR articles, and this model is better than GPT, and this model is better than GPT. But in reality, none of the other models general models, I mean, right? Like general purpose model, none of the models was actually better than GPT-4, for example. So it's really like, it's the most sophisticated, the most reliable, and so on. So if you start using and playing with it, definitely use OpenAI. Its API, it's very simple, it's accessible, it's not so expensive, right, to play around with it. And it can really present you a lot of new things. There is a PHP package already available for communication with the API, OpenAI PHP client. And basically, if you want to really start with just using the code, I would actually recommend you use this model, because then you can just use their function and basically off you go. So this is like the example of a custom module, right? So we have a block, and in this block we have an input field, and when you click generate, it basically calls this function. So, and this function is basically everything, or all the logic with the communication with the OpenAI happens here. So there is no other code. So the message we typed in the input field, we have the system message, which basically primes the AI. And then we basically send in the message, the system message, and the user message. We call this function, we get the response. We have to walk around a bit in their response array, and then we can basically display the message to the user. I will actually do a live one for this. Yeah. Okay, describe Drupal with one word. So what we should get is we should get a Drupal default message like this, or flexible. Okay. So, and I mentioned before that basically we can go beyond just creating content and blog posts and so on, because we have so much more powerful in it. So, and people started actually building systems or software that chained together those AI agents. All of them had their different job and responsibility. And the goal was to basically go to, artificial general intelligence. So something that could, I don't know, search Google, do that, and basically start thinking and storing information. So basically, a brain, right? So if you're interested in something like this, I would recommend to check this baby AGI. This basically runs on Python, and you can set it up locally. And I think that the use case is that you give it like a simple task, and then it starts thinking about the task, making subtasks, and so on. So it starts basically thinking a lot about the things, about the prompt that you just say. It starts to really do a lot of other things as well. So the use cases that we are going for are, more complex in terms of, I don't know, you insert a simple question about, oh, I want to go to a vacation this summer, right? And this AI agents chained together, they find you the right place to go, they find you the right hotel, they find you flights, the cheapest flights, and they also do all the ordering and booking and so on. And in the end, just that simple question, you get all the hotels booked and flights booked, right? This is kind of the whole idea of where we are heading with this thing. So I was thinking about how to present like an example of more than just writing some content, but to let AI also make some kind of decisions in the Drupal context, right? So I made a very simple, basically custom module on a page that has 4 content types. Sorry. So this page has 4 content types: article, basic page, event, and recipe. And instead of like creating content by content type, I will actually let AI decide which content type he would like to create, or it would, sorry, already personalize it. So it would like to create, right? And in this case, I pause. So in this case, I basically put in the prompt that just like a basic statement. So our company is celebrating 10 years of existence on this on 26th of September with a big party. So, and this is all the information that AI will get from me. And after clicking generate, it basically created an event content type and fill it out with obviously content that he knows about. And he even chose the right date and populated the right field for that. And because this is not just one trick pony, I mean, I have a couple of examples. So I'm also, what was the next one? Yeah, so I want to tell the world how chocolate cookies are made. So I'm not even suggesting that this is a recipe in my text, and the AI will basically figure it out that I probably want to make a recipe. So I want to create a content of type recipe, and it fills in all of the all of the fields, including ingredients and instructions. I did not go and make those cookies. I don't know how they would taste, but let's assume that they are real cookies, right? And the last example was, I think that obviously every time I put in the prompt, I knew what kind of content type I wanted out, right? But let's say that this could be useful if you have a client with a lot of content types and an editor who does not know all of those things. This thing could actually be, so I basically asked them or told them that our company needs a privacy policy published on the website, and it choose the content type of basic page for that, not event, not article, and so on. And it also does things like URL alias, and for example, I think that event it also published on the front page, which it made sense, right? So I did a lot of things, and like the most scary or the most interesting part is this is all the code for that functionality. So there is no if statements, if you say this. I'm not even doing multiple calls to the AI. That's it, right? And the whole trick is that, first of all, I realized that if I told him that this is a Drupal 9 site, it's going to be structuring my response much better. It will be well aware of what is the concept of a field, what is the concept of a text field, what is the concept of a date field. So it worked much better. And I'm also injecting, of course, the structure, right? So what I did, I will just show the slide. So this is this gibberish, right? This is basically a list of all the content types with all of its fields in a JSON. So it's just a dump, right? Of how our structure is, how many content types we have and which fields they have. What are their machine names and what are their labels? And basically, this is this generate JSON. This is that information, and then that's it. And what I get back is a JSON, because I insist that it has to return only JSON, no other things. And it basically, in most cases, it's not 100% reliable, but in most cases, it would return back a valid JSON, which I can basically decode and just very ambitiously use it in the node create function, right? And again, should there be a lot of validation here? Yeah, for sure. But like, it mostly worked, right? Which is a big thing. And that's it. Then I just redirect it to this page and off we go. And yeah, so as I mentioned before, it works very well because it knows Drupal 9, its structure, and it also understands my JSON, which for you it might be gibberish, but if I would maybe, I mean, if you would read this in a more structured way, you would realize that, okay, we have a couple of content types, we have a couple of fields in those content types, but somehow it knows what kind of JSON to return that I can immediately changed into an array and use it to create a node. So yeah, I mean, I would encourage you to use AI for coding. I think it's useful, especially with more tedious tasks. But I would even more encourage you to start building just like random applications, random software, and just using AI. And yeah, don't forget that you can really push the limits of what it can return to you. So I've really started abusing a lot of JSON outputs and using that JSON to basically what you want, right, out of an API is not just text string, but you want some kind of structured data that you can use in your application. And it's actually very good at that with very little help, right? I mean, this is not really helpful if you ask me, or this is not so hard to do. So yeah, I think that's it from my side. If you have any questions, we can also take a look a bit of the code because I see it's everything is working. So. Questions?
Hi, thank you for the interesting presentation. I wanted to know, when you chose the models, what's the backend there? Is it running on your local machine, or where is it sending the?
You mean where is the AI happening?
Yeah.
So AI is happening on OpenAI. This is just an API.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did some. I pitched that I will try to do some local AI model here. Unfortunately, I just didn't have enough time to set it up properly. So that was a bit of an oversell for this session. I apologize.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for your talk. Very interesting. I have a question. In your code, you put the temperature to 0.4.
Yeah.
Why did you choose this value?
Trial and error, I guess.
All right. Okay.
So I know that for example, I mean the point of the temperature, the higher the number, the more random, hallucinating, made up things you get, right? You really don't want to get, you really don't want to put 0 in there because then you might not get the value out of it. So yeah, it's just trial and error, and I usually now I started using 0.4 for almost everything, and to be honest, I mean, sometimes you change the temperature, but you also change the prompt a little bit, and it's completely different. And now you don't really know what made the change. And also, like, if the temperature is 0, every request you would make with the same prompt should give you the same result. As soon as you change it from more than 0, you get variations. So I think that it's really up to the task. So for example, I have some other app which is more for let's say writing content, and temperature is much higher there because I want to be more creative, basically.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, for example, for the recipes, there would be like to make it more higher.
Yeah, but would you eat that? Would you eat that cookie then?
Yeah, maybe for crazy cookies.
Yeah.
So. All right, thank you.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.